We're still tracking Fred. The system, which was once Tropical Storm Fred, has weakened to a depression after crossing over the mountains of the Dominican Republic.
But even with the weakening out there, we are still scheduled for a lot of rain this weekend.
We have our hurricane specialist, Bryan Norcross, with analysis, but we're going to begin with the latest on Fred with our certified chief meteorologist, Betty Davis.
Good afternoon. Several inches of rainfall in the forecast for South Florida, where we see Fred right now off the north coast of Cuba. And it looks like one tattered mess on the infrared satellite imagery. All the shower thunderstorm activity displaced from that center. Brian's going to talk more about the system in a second, but winds of 35 miles per hour. It's a tropical depression moving west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Here's that projected path. This forecast from the National Hurricane Center showing it sticking just off that north coast of Cuba. And maybe it manages to become a tropical storm again as it's closing in on the Florida Keys and South Florida. So it's moving in the vicinity of the Keys come Saturday, and then we'll track it. The forecast model shows it just offshore of the west coast of Florida. Will it be more close to land or right over the peninsula or more so over waters? Still a few question marks with Fred in terms of where it tracks in the long term, and also some question marks about how intense it can get right now, as it's a tropical depression right now, I should say. So let's bring in our hurricane specialist, Bryan Norcross, to talk more about Fred and the expectations with this system. Bryan?
Betty, if this thing were actually just becoming a tropical depression, the system that we see out there probably would not be called a tropical depression. Because if you look at the thunderstorms, look at this over here. Here's one over here. You see that popping up right there. Another one up here. Notice none of them are around the center. None of them are rotating around the center. We also notice up here, look at the clouds blowing off at a very high rate in the upper levels of the atmosphere. All this is signs that the conditions are not favorable for this to intensify very quickly. So there's the cone that Betty was showing there. Now, if it tracks to the left side of the cone, as it has wanted to do, that's going to involve Cuba, which will make it harder for it to intensify. If it stays a little offshore, obviously Cuba will have less of an influence. But here's the thing. When it gets up near the Keys and South Florida, whether it's where the icon is there or it's one side or the other, doesn't really make any difference. Look at the upper level winds blowing here kind of out of the south. That is a condition that makes it very difficult to intensify. On the other hand, we do have down there underneath of it, we do have very warm water. So right now we're just going to count on rain, as Betty's been talking about, and gusty winds, but not dangerous winds. Just boaters use good sense and plan something to do to get away from the rain on Saturday at least. Betty will have that forecast in just a moment. Guys, back to you.
All right, Bryan, thank you for that. And remember, you can always get up-to-date information with our free Max Tracker app. Download that on your smartphone.